If you're a nomad capitalist looking to live or spend part of your year in Europe, there's a couple things that you need to consider before you make the move. The first and perhaps biggest is taxes. Taxes in Europe are often high. It's easier to get sucked into many European countries' tax nets than you would in other parts of the world. And so you'll want to find a country that has a friendly tax system. They're not going to take half your money. Perhaps they've got a low rate or a tax exemption or a flat tax you can take advantage of. Number two is you want to find a country that respects success, offers you a certain amount of freedom. It's just a good general place to live. It's livable. It offers the things that you need as a successful person. And number three is you want a country that is safe. There aren't a lot of countries in Europe or anywhere in the world that meet those three criteria, but today I'm going to share with you several that I found that might fit the bill. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, and here at Nomad Capitalist, we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs legally go where they're treated best. That means international tax planning, second citizenship for more options, investing in up-and-coming markets. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And today, we're going to talk about living in Europe without breaking the bank. Not from a cost of living perspective, but from a safety perspective and from a tax perspective. How do you put those two things together? Because oftentimes the countries that people think, that's the safe country. Not only are they not safe in many cases, but you're going to spend a lot of money to live there. And what's interesting is many people where I come from, the United States, and perhaps in other Western countries, will say, everyone wants to move to our country because it's safe. And then you look at the data in the United States. It's actually not that safe. In fact, even though we're only going to talk about some of the safest countries in Europe, only 2 countries in all of Europe have more murders per capita than the United States, Russia and Ukraine. And so it really depends on how you define safety. If you're looking to avoid petty crime, you probably don't want to live in Barcelona. I know multiple people who've had watches stolen right off their wrist. There goes 50,000 euros. It's running right down the street with a gang of hoodlums. If you're looking to avoid more serious crimes like rape and murder, then that's what we're going to focus on today. But you really have to understand that the brand name countries that are promoted as safe, the ones that everyone wants to move to, aren't particularly safe. The US, the UK, Australia. These countries, they just don't, on a global level, when you look at objective data, they don't really match up against some of these countries. And so quite frankly, if you're coming from the United States and you're looking for a place that's safe, you can apparently just throw a dart and move pretty much anywhere. But then the factor becomes, where do I pay less in tax? Now, the first place that's an old staple of high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals is Monaco. Very small place. Easy to immigrate there if you're willing to put €500,000. In theory, it's going to be more in the bank and rent or buy a property and commit to spending a decent amount of time there every year. 0 income tax, pretty much the only place in Europe where you can do that. Pretty safe place in their 1 square kilometer. Everyone lives in harmony with their Ferraris and their Lamborghinis and their €41 hamburgers. Nice place to be. A little constricting if you actually have to spend your time in the principality, but very nice place to be. And you can get safety, low taxes, and you can park some of your money and get some asset protection all in one. The second country is Andorra, nestled between Spain and France. It's in the Pyrenees, in the mountains. You will be left alone. Very safe place. Very little crime. I have a number of friends who have lived there at one point or currently live there. And there are some places, we just leave the back door open, we don't lock the car. Very safe place. Again, you get to park some money in the bank. You can buy real estate there. You can get a residence permit there. Now, both of these countries, Monaco and Andorra, pretty difficult to get citizenship in. But as a place to live, Andorra, low taxes. We're talking 0 up to 10%, depending on what you're doing. And so, pretty good place to live if you want not the French Riviera lifestyle, but if you want more of the mountain, ski, summer living in the mountains lifestyle, not a bad place to be. Number 3, another staple of the wealthy, Switzerland, pretty safe place. And again, if you're willing to move there, unlike the first 2 countries, you actually do have to pay some tax, and it's going to be hundreds of thousands of Swiss francs a year for most people, but it's a flat tax. And so, while Andorra works better for someone who perhaps is just starting out, you're making a 6 or 7 figure income, Switzerland, you can make pretty much as much money as you want once you pay this flat tax. There are certainly intricacies to the flat tax in Switzerland, or the lump sum tax. We've talked about that in a separate video here on our channel. You can find out more about those types of programs. Certainly a safe place, certainly offers livability, and you can negotiate that tax down to this lump sum. Number 4 is actually not a country. It is the island of Jersey. And we've talked about Jersey before as a great alternative. I think Jersey is something that a lot of people should look at, especially if they're looking to move to a place like New Zealand, for example, because you've got a bit more of that temperate climate. You know, you're near the United Kingdom. That gives you an idea of kind of what part of the world that you're in. But you have this sort of British sensibility. I was looking at some of the crime stats in Jersey. It's almost kind of laughable. I think there's like 100 people in jail in Jersey. And very safe place. Obviously, you're on an island. It can be very constricting, but you've got this sense of community with the British sensibilities, and you can pay a flat tax of about $200,000 a year, 145,000 British pounds, and then 1% above that. You can even work on that 1% if it's objectionable to you. Very safe place to live, certainly more of a place for families. Again, I've suggested it as an alternative to a place like New Zealand. If you're looking for a place to live in that English-speaking part of the world. Especially interesting if you want a place where you can just bounce up and down to London and then go anywhere you want in the world, to travel wherever you want. Very safe, very livable, perhaps not the most exciting place. And if you are a 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur, the tax rate effectively becomes single digits at some point. The 5th place, let's talk about places that are a bit more accessible. Portugal. When you look at some of the data, Portugal is actually one of the safer countries in Europe, and it's become a hub for a lot of nomads, people who spend time in different homes around the world. But the crime data in Portugal actually seems quite reasonable. And so they have a 10-year tax exemption. Now, I've described it as a tax exemption that is kind of like the Swiss cheese of tax exemptions. There are many different obstacles that you have to deal with. You can't have your company in certain places. Certain types of income is treated differently than others. You really want to do some comprehensive tax planning before you just assume you go to Portugal and don't change anything, right? But if you structure your life and your business affairs properly, then Portugal can be a relatively tax-free place. Not entirely tax-free in most cases. Certainly a good place for cryptocurrency investors. They have flocked to Portugal. Not a bad place to get a second citizenship if you're willing to put the time in on the ground. Different immigration programs available. And again, relatively safe, relatively tax-friendly, with the caveat, as with pretty much every country in Europe, that tax friendliness does require planning. It's not as simple as moving to Costa Rica or to Thailand, where the tax planning is much more simple. In Europe, there's always a bit more nuance, but you can get the job done. And the other country that works at the borders of Europe, if you will, is Georgia. Tax-friendly country. Not only are they going to exempt most income from out of the country, there are some caveats to that. They also have, for people who live there full-time, a private entrepreneur scheme. You can pay as little as 1% tax. Again, when structured properly and you make the proper designations. You don't just show up, but can be done relatively easily. And obviously Georgia, one of the cheapest places to live in Europe. You could easily live for $1,000 a month as a foreigner. Lots of great food, lots of great wine. Immigration's become a bit more difficult, but they still have a tourist visa program that allows most people to spend up to 1 year there on a tourist visa, 360-day tourist visa. They've talked about rolling out some kind of digital nomad visa for people making a couple grand a month. So certainly a much more accessible place than a Switzerland. And quite frankly, for someone like myself, if I'm going to be choosing between Jersey and living on a small island, or living in a country that is a bit more emerging and perhaps has more freedom and people are just more relaxed, I quite frankly might choose Georgia and pocket the extra savings and invest all that extra money into whatever it is I'm investing in. Just I happen to like that kind of place better. But you've got a whole swath of places there to choose from, all of which are pretty safe. I have friends in Georgia. I've obviously owned property there and I've spent a lot of time there. Everyone has a story about how they left a camera worth $5 grand in some taxi's back seat, and the guy brought it back to them. And so you really have a very safe environment there. There are other safe countries. One country that comes to the top of a lot of the rankings is Slovenia. Beautiful country. Not exactly the most tax efficient. Austria also high on the list. Not exactly the most tax efficient. Those countries have immigration programs, but if you're living there any good period of time, you are going to be paying some tax, and they have rather aggressive rules. Not the best place from a tax perspective. So what I want you to take away from this is, number one, there are a wide array of options to choose from, everything from Monaco to Georgia. That's a pretty wide disparity. And you can choose the kind of lifestyle that you want. You can pay as little as 0% tax living in Europe. More likely, you're probably going to be paying 5 or 7 or 10. But anything in the single digits, quite frankly, as a 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur is pretty good. And what I like is that you can get the quality of life, whether you want amazing shopping, whether you want amazing nightlife, whether you want beautiful scenery, wineries, great food. These countries each offer a number of those different things, and you can have it without having to give up half of your income the way you would in many other European countries. And so when someone says, Andrew, I want to move to Spain, or my wife wants to move to France, I say, consider these countries first. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.